few people here that know me. I think that Mark will be quite happy really tonight to see so many people have come tonight to wish him all the best in his forthcoming retirement. I'm probably the only person here that's known him an awful long time. And most of those times were fucking awful. But if truth was told, really, he came as a very young lad who liked his pints frequently, and he came, and at that time, in those good old days, porters, after a certain amount of time, became what we called technicians, which now are OPDs, ODPs, whatever the hell they are. He was but under the good care of a gentleman called Trevor Harland, who tragically died quite young. And Trevor was a typical Yorkshireman. I don't come from Yorkshire, but he was my typical Yorkshireman. He liked a golden delicious apple every dinner time. He liked 10 or 12 pints on a weekend. And he was just a really good chap and took Mark under his wing. And I said to him one day, I don't think I can cope with this. And he said, he's only young, sister. He'll be all right. He's a good lad, really. He's only young. And so he proved right that he was okay. He was a good lad. He was a good worker. He was. You've got to remember that.
She retired a long time ago. So
yes, in the days of yore, you didn't have any option but to be a good worker, and so he was, and he had a good group of people around him in what was called the porter's room, and where they had their lunch and everything else, and there was just a lot of senior people around to give him advice. He might not have always taken it, but they were there to support him. He worked in urology quite a lot, which was my speciality, and he worked elsewhere in the department. We moved theatres from David Beaver's theatres up to Geoffrey Giles, and I don't think any of you would believe really how we went on in those days. At Christmas there would be beer brewing in big orange buckets at the back for the Christmas party. We always had Christmas parties. Nights out, there would be lurid tales of them be going to Blackpool, and one poor chap was left in the florry, which is no longer with us, and eventually got hauled out of the florry as the coach was leaving for Blackpool because it had a long night the night before. We had some amazing Christmas parties and things, and it was a very, very good time to be working in theatres. He, I'm sure, will have told you lots of tales about me, which are all true. I was a bit of a, what you would call a martinet, really, of the old school. But the bottom line was that the patient mattered. The bottom line was that you gave the care to the patient as if it was one of your own. That was my bottom line. And we just got on really well in lots of ways. We had lots of, shall we say, raised voice discussions at times, because he kept fucking disappearing out the theatre. And you would just be about to get the patient off the table. None of this nice pat slide business you have to do it yourselves. And where is he? Oh, I don't know, sister. Well, go and find him. And he would appear. Oh, what did you want, sister? What did you want? Well, we're ready to come, let's get going. And in those days, of course, patient turnover was a lot quicker than it is now. There was none of this nice preparation in the anaesthetic room. As you came into the anaesthetic room, you were given a dose of the white stuff, and the doors were flung open, and the patient came in. Now, he might have been asleep, he might not have been, but he came in. And we carried on like that, and there would be nothing for, say, on a Tuesday morning for there to be 10 cases on in the urology theatre, and we finished at 1 o'clock. and there was very rarely anything cancelled, but we had a very slick surgeon as well. And so life went on. We went up, you know, got married, had children. It still seemed to be a bit of a lad in spite of that. And we actually moved up then to Geoffrey Giles Theatres, and he did, as I say, disappear. So this went on for many a time, and eventually I said, look, you see this square on the floor? And he said yes, and it was all terrazzo tiling and big squares. I said, that is your fucking square. So don't move out of it, that is where you're going to stand for this procedure. Yes, sister. And of course he didn't, but it was a big joke for us, wasn't it, the square? And then we moved up to Geoffrey Giles, which we tried to carry on the same way as we'd done in David Beaver's. We still had a Christmas party in the Urology Theatre. Various people supplied food, and Patrick and myself used to supply the punch. And the punch was made with rum and whatever alcohol we could get hold of, and a lot of orange juice. And in those days, there was in urology, you had a great big, a bucket on wheels is the best description I can run about. And so we always had a brand new one in the cupboard. So this one used to come out, and I used to bring prawns and things in and chop them up small. And for those of you that don't know urology really, you do prostatic surgery and you collect the bits in a sieve. And, they are just like prawns. So when people came for their glass of punch, they got a few prawns in through the sieve. And eventually, the theatre manager called Mr. Bagley decided that this was against the rules and we really shouldn't be having parties. He got the same response as most people would get from it, and began with an F and ended with an F, and we carried on. And it was just a different camaraderie in the theatres and everything. So Fridays was a day when I didn't actually wash my hands. I probably washed my hands most days, but Fridays I didn't, and we did what we called Red Line, which was a nightmare day. Theatres were expected to supply everything, and the hospital, have you got this, have you got that? No, we haven't got it, or what have you. But we all used to gather around in the afternoon and have a bit of a chat and everything else, and a bit of a laugh. And one day Mr. Galloway was just being a bit with him. So I called him round the other side of the desk and told him to kneel down. And I'm only 5'2" and I proceeded to headbutt him. Which was a bit shocked by. Anyway.
That's how you deal with staff. Just headbutt them.
And it's nice to see so many of you here that I do remember. It's 16 years since I worked in theatres, and retirement has brought not always the way you expect it to go, but it has been interesting. I've done quite a bit of travelling, etc. And generally I definitely don't want to be back. So I would really just like, and I hope everybody has got something in their glass or something like that, but I would really just like you all to stand up, and you'll do it now.
Yeah.
And,
To Mark!
Yes, back all the way.
That's the most in corner for you. Can I just say something? Oh, can I just say something before Mark does? There's 3 people here that are intruders, right? And trust me, they never want to visit NHS ever again.
Oh my!
And it's a good job you've eaten.
Come on. First of all, can I say thank you to Sister Skull? As I always call Sister Scott. She was always Sister Scott to me. You know, like I say, she was the rock in the theatre department. It didn't matter if you were man, woman or boy, or professor of surgery. Pat would always tell you how it was. So it didn't really matter if you was Mark Galloway, 18-year-old, you, Porter in theatre, or you were Professor Giles, you know, Professor of Surgery. She would tell you, you don't leave your fucking shoes there. Simple as. So, as always, respect to Pat, because Pat's from a generation that work was a real vocation, and I think as we, I look around now and I know all you people have been dedicated to your job. I look at somebody like Lara who's here, who's a real dedicated person and really good in her job. But vocationally, I know that vocation were about people like Scotty. Scotty was, the job was everything to her. Going home at what time every night, Scotty? 7, 8 o'clock. Every night that ODA went out and rang your husband and would say, Ma, what's for tea? Oh, no, she's not going to make it in time for tea, She'll be home at what time did we used to say?
About 9 o'clock.
She'll be home at 9 o'clock exactly, 9 after 9. So, my memories of those days are fond, definitely. I was so lucky I literally arrived in theatre by accident. I was working building sites, literally working building sites, and I broke my collarbone playing rugby, and I couldn't, because of that, I couldn't, work on those building sites anymore. So I found myself a job, and it happened to be portraiting in theatre, and then I was with my 2 O-levels, art and chemistry. I mean, I ask, what fucking use is that? 2 O-levels, art and chemistry. And some bloke, Frank Pearson, said to me, oh yeah, you can be a porter in theatre, and if you're any good, we'll let you be an ODA. I thought, alright, that sounds alright, So there I am, before I know where I'm some sort of ODA, helping patients, help the patient through the journey. What can I say? It's difficult to sort of summarise all those. I mean, for me, it's been 30 odd years, so it's difficult to summarise that. What I would say in that time is I've met some extraordinary people. So there are some extraordinary people in terms of surgeons. So myself and Pat certainly remember Prof Giles. We now work in a theatre department named after him. The guy was incredible, he really was. His dedication to work and his hard work was second to none. I'm sure Pat backed me up in that. He was absolutely psychotic in his approach to work. And equally, I've worked with anaesthetists, people like Gordon Lyons and Ian Wilson who really showed me what work is about, what your commitment to your patient is like. But I've also worked with some extraordinary people and still work with extraordinary people now. So whatever the bollocks that management tell you about, they'll always tell you it's about this or it's about this or patient. It's not. It's about the fucking person stood next to you. It's about your mate. It's about those 3 or 4 people that treat those patients. So every time I would say, look to those people around you. Literally, look to those people around you, because that's what makes work palatable. That's what makes it what it is. So I would say every time, please look at those people. Be a friend to everybody. Absolutely. As much as you can be nice to everybody. As much as you can be, do good rather than harm. Always remember. And as I always finish my speeches, there are only 2 types of surgeons. There are.
Sorry about this.
There are fast bastard and slow and please hope, for fuck's sake, you are working with a fast bastard.
Well said, Mark.
It's just a small insight into the modern age.
We're in crisis.
Please don't go talk to the garden.
Don't tell Theresa Mary. Cheers, man.
Great Ace of